now we are moving on to the new topic, that is pledge. After bailment, we are discussing about pledge. Why we are discussing pledge, ma'am? Maybe the question. Because the pledge and bailment have got certain similarities. Pledge, you can say it is a special kind of bailment. That's why we are discussing about pledge now. It has got more resemblance of bailment itself. Let's discuss, and at last let us try to figure out what is the difference between pledge and bailment. First, let us know what is pledge. Now, keep whatever you have studied about the bailment, just keep it in your mind and try to know this pledge. Then we'll discuss what it is. Just try to be analyzing it. Or how is it same as bailment? And if at all, if you find any difference, try to find out the difference also. It will be very useful. Okay, now let's move on. Meaning of pledge. First, let us know the general meaning of pledge. Pledge means thing given over as a security. So it says that a thing which you are giving as a security. Why security you want? Why are you giving a thing? So it basically means that a pledge means for any loan advanced on goods or any chattels which are given into the possession of a person who advances the money. Okay, I'll break this into it. There is a person who is giving a loan, and in order to get the loan, you have to give him certain security, right? To the person who is giving loan. That security which you are giving has your goods has a security, or any of your chattels or any of your property has a security. That particular security is known as pledge. You are giving it as a pledge. See, I will return you the amount. If at all I don't return you the amount, you can take this possession, whatever I have given of my property, and you can dispose it off in order to realize your loan amount. Simple? Clear? Okay, let's proceed. Now, section 172 gives the definition of bailment. It says that the bailment of goods has a security for payment of a debt or a performance of a promise is called as pledge. The bailment of goods. What is bailment? You are giving your goods for certain purpose. Here, only one additional point is you are also giving a security for your good. For that, you have so that you are secured from all the ways, so that you will be assured that yes, I will be getting back my goods plus the money. We'll discuss this further. The bailment of a goods has a security for the payment of debt or performance of a promise is the pledge. Got to know the definition? Fine. Now let's move on. Here, how do you relate bailment and pledges? Simple. The bailer is called the pledger or pawner. He is giving his security. He is giving some good. So, he is called pledger. Then the bailee is the pawnee or the pledge. Who is a bailee? Who is taking into the possession. So, he is called pledgee or pawnee. Now, I think the things are clear now. So, bailer means, remember, always you can either use this word or this word. No harm in using any word. So, bailer is a person who gives his goods. So, here pawner or a pledger is a person who is giving his goods as a security. Why is he giving as a security? For some debt. Debt is for some loan or for some performance of a promise. I will do this and I will give you this as a security. Please keep this. So, got it? Now, bailee. Who is a bailee? Bailee is a person who receives the possession of the goods. So, pawnee or a pledgee is a person who receives the goods. Try to correlate it. When you are trying to correlate it, you will find the difference also. So, we will talk about the difference later. Now, better understand this. here person who receives the goods. Always remember receiver of the goods, and here he is the person taking the goods. If you know the two properly, you can answer this. So it is a special kind of payment which is given for a special purpose. There is some special purpose, so it's a special kind of payment. The goods pledged or pawned, you can use pawn or pledge. Either whichever is easy for you, you can use it. So the goods which are pledged serve as a security for the payment of debt or performance of a promise. So they serve as a security. That is a security. See, this definition only you get to know everything. Almost all your essentials, your rights, your duties, everything will be given in the definition only. Just try to break it and analyze it. Whatever I am saying is just interchanging the words, and I am giving you the brief explanation about it. Got it? So the goods which are pledged, suppose I pledge this watch. So whatever goods I have pledged, they serve as a security for the payment of my debt. For the payment of my debt, till I pay the debt, I don't get my watch. Or till the performance of a promise. I promise that okay, I will do something for you. So till then you can have my watch. Any example you can take. Performance of a promise. So that is also a pledge, right? Now let's discuss the essentials of valid pledge. The first very essential of valid pledges, there should be payment of goods, that is the delivery of goods from one person to another. The important point to be noted is delivery of goods from one person to another. If you just write this is also fine. There must be delivery of goods. What did we learn in payment? When I said that this is a special kind of payment, the essential should also be similar, right? Same, right? In fact, not similar even, it should be same, right? So there also it was delivery of goods, and here also it is delivery of goods. So it means that there should be a transfer of possession. Transfer of possession from pledger to pledgee. This delivery again can be actual or constructive. That is, actual means physical possession, or else it can be constructive also, not handing over the physical possession, just saying that yes, the possession is with the other person. Now let us try to know through some case laws which amounts to a valid pledge and which does not amount to a valid pledge, and the constructive pledge also. The last case, that is the Bank of Chittor versus Narasimhalu, is a perfect example for your constructive delivery. The Revenue Authority versus Sudarshanam Pictures tells you what is not a pledge. This is a perfect example to say that it is not a pledge. And Morvi Mercantile Bank versus Union of India is a perfect example wherein you have to mention in your exam if you have any questions pertaining to pledge. If at all, this is going to be your important case study. That is Morvi Mercantile Bank versus Union of India. It is a Supreme Court judgment. So please do remember, this is the most important case. Now let's see what happened in the cases one by one. The first case, Revenue Authority versus Sudarshanam Pictures. I told you that this is not a pledge. What happened in this case? Do remember, and okay, forget whatever clue I've given. I'll just give you the facts. Now you should be in a position to answer whether it is a pledge or not. What happens in this case? It's about a movie. There is a producer for a movie, right? That producer, he agrees to deliver the final prints of the movie. The movie was still under production. So after everything is over, he says that I will hand over the final prints of the movie to the financier cum distributor. There is a production unit and there is a producer. That producer, he makes an agreement with the financier distributor come financial, that he will hand over the final prints of the movie which was under production. After the production is over, he'll hand over it to them. Why? For some amount. Now, we just got it. The finance is provided by the financial distributor. Now, the question is it a valid pledge? The answer was, no, it is not a pledge. Why? Because there is no transfer of possession. There is no possession, right? Even there is no actual possession, there is no constructive possession also. So I hope you're clear with this case and the judgment also. The case is very simple. There is a producer and there is a financial come distributor. This producer makes an agreement saying that the movie is still which is under production. After the production are over, I will give you the rights. You please finance certain amount for this movie or a film. Both agrees. Now the question was, is this a pledge? He is giving the final prints of the movie. It was held that no, it is not a pledge since there is no transfer of possession taking place. Clear? So this is not a pledge. The next one is Morbi Mercantile Bank versus Union of India. This case is quite interesting. There is one business firm. Assume any business firm, XYZ business firm. They have consigned certain goods to railways for being carried from Bombay to a place near Delhi. It is Okhla. If my pronunciation is wrong, please excuse me. The spelling is Okhla. It is near Delhi. And to be delivered to Self. Meanwhile, this business firm, XYZ business firm, enters into contract with the appellant bank, say for 20,000 rupees. They have taken a loan. The business firm has taken a loan from the appellant bank for 20,000 rupees. And what have they given as security is, they've executed a promissory note in favor of the appellant bank. Plus, they have even they've endorsed this railway receipts. Whatever I said, the goods which they've consigned certain goods to railways, that goods they've given it as a security, and they've endorsed the railway receipts, and along with promissory notes plus railway receipts, they've given it to the appellant bank. Now, what happens? Meanwhile, during the transit, the goods are lost. Now this appellant bank files a case. Remember, it is the appellant bank who files a case against the railway authority. On what basis? Saying that they are the pledgee of the goods. Pledgee, Pledgee, pledgee of the goods. They are the one who have to get the possession. Got it? So the question arises whether this transfer of railway receipts amounts to the possession of goods, transfer of possession of goods, and is it a valid pledge? The respondents, that is the railway authorities, contended that this endorsed railway receipts, what they are talking of, and that they've got as a pledge, does not amount to the pledge. No, it is not at all a valid pledge. You can't make railway receipts as a pledge. Treat it as a security at all. But it was held that according to Indian law, this railway receipt is a document of title. It said that it's a document of the title, and the delivery of railway receipts means delivery of goods. Therefore, it is a valid pledge. Got my point? Remember always, the railway's receipts was endorsed, plus the promissory note was given as a security to the appellant bank by a business firm, some business firm. for a loan taken for worth 20,000 rupees. The goods are lost in the transit, and now this appellant bank has filed a case against railway authorities under this pledge, saying that there is a contract that is a pledge. Railway authority says that no, you can't keep this railway receipts as your security. It is not transfer of goods at all. You cannot say it as pledge. Then later on, it was held that no, since there is a title, it is a document of title, therefore it is a pledge. Got it? Simple. Next, let's go to the other last part of the case law. I told you that the transfer can be actual or it can be even constructive. The best example is for constructive delivery. You can give this Bank of Chittor versus Narsimhalu. So in this, what happens is the bailer has got some cinema projector and other accessories that are required for the cinema projector. He requests the Bailey Bank to take it as a pledged goods, and also says that, see, since I have a cinema hall, I will be using this cinema projector, but you can have the possession of it. Let the possession be with you, but I will be using it. I told you, I've given the same example when I was explaining you under section 151, right? Not 151, I'm sorry. When I was discussing about the essentials of bailment, right? So the same thing is being given in a case law. That's all. Bank of Chittor versus Narsimhalu. So the bailer of cinema projector has given his cinema projector to the bailee for some amount. He has taken certain loan and he is given that cinema projector, but he says that please let me use the cinema projector, and whenever you demand it, I will give it to you. So the court held that yes, it is a constructive delivery. There is a delivery of goods, that is transfer of possession, and it is constructive. Though there is no actually giving, physical possession is not transferred, but still under the terms and conditions they have given it that you will be having my cinema projector, and now the bailer is having it transferred to the bailee. Clear? The bailer is transferring it to the bailee, the cinema projector, but the possession is with the bailer. Second essential of pledge is purpose of pledge is a security for the payment of debt or etc. We studied that. It was given in the very definition itself, right? What did we study? Why is this security given? For the payment of debt or any performance of promise. So see, it is very simple. Break your definition, analyze your definition. Then you can write any question which is relevant to the particular topic. So here the second essential is purpose of pledge. What is the purpose of pledge? Is the security for the payment of debt, etc. So basically, if you just take a definition. So purpose of the goods, why it is given as a pledge is two. First one, divide it. First one is for the payment of debt. First, for payment of debt. If any loan is taken, for the payment of that debt. The second one is for the performance of any promise made. If there is any promise made, for the performance of that, the particular pledge is given, particular good is given as a security or as a pledge. Got it? So when goods are pledged, the important points to be noted here is when the goods are pledged, the pawnee, who is the pawnee? He assumes a position of secured creditor. Now who is a pawner and pawnee? Pawner is a person pledging the goods. Pawnee is a person who is receiving the goods. So he becomes a secured creditor. What is the meaning of secured creditor? Didn't I discuss you with this regarding this even in contract of guarantee? Yes, we discussed this. Creditor, the principal, debtor and surety. Then who is a creditor? The person who has given a loan. is a creditor. Secured creditor means he is having a security. So the pawnee here becomes a secured creditor. That is, he is in a safe position. If at all, man, you don't pay the money, I have your property with me. I can discharge from it. Simple. Got it? So, first analyze this. First, whenever you write a second essential, give the purpose of the pledge. Purpose of the pledge, divide it into two. First one is for the payment of the debt and second one is for performance of the promise. Then you say that here the position of a pawnee. Pawnee is a person to whom the goods are given on pledge. So he assumes the position. It is not assumed. He comes to the position of secured creditor and he can have a prior claim. That is the first claim. If at all you don't give me, I am your creditor. You have to give me because you have my property with me. The best example, the best case law for this is Bank of India versus Binout Steel Limited. What happens in this case is the company pledges movable to a bank. Here, the company, they pledge some movables to the bank. Even here also, in case of pledge also, it's movable property, do remember. So, they pledge certain movables to the bank. Now, the question is, since they have given the movables, they pledged their property to the bank, so now, always they are under their secured creditors, right? See, the bank has given the loan to the company and company has given certain goods. Now they have a property. So they are secured creditors. So whenever if there are other creditors also to the company, first you have to, the person who has taken a loan has to satisfy all the amount, that is clear all the amount of this secured creditor first and then proceed to the other creditors. What did I say in the previous, sentence when I was discussing about secured creditor? I told you that they have a prior claim, that is the first claim. So in this case also it was held that since the company has taken a loan, taken a loan and given the movables, the company is in the position of a secured creditor and they have a claim towards the property, and their claims has to be satisfied first. And then only they can proceed with the other creditors. Without satisfying their claim, they cannot go to the other creditors. They cannot satisfy other creditors. Clear? Now let's go. Let's move on to the other things. What are the other things we will be dealing in this is, see, due to this pledge, there is certain kind of special property of goods in the favor of the pledgee. Pledgee or pawnee has got special kind of goods, a special kind of property, and it entitles him to have the possession of it, and by that possession of goods he can recover the money or dispose it also. If at all, if he does not recover money, he can dispose it. Why? For realization of his debt. Simple. What I said was, he has got a special property which entitles him to, it entitles him to have the possession of the goods and dispose it off if at all his debts are not realized. What happens if the pledgee or the pawnee, waives off his right and does not claim the goods, claim his interest in the goods? What I mean to say is, now the being a creditor, see, the creditor is giving a loan, the pawnee is giving a loan to the pawner, pledgee to pledger, remember. So he is giving a loan. He is asking some security so that he will be in a secured place that if at all that man doesn't repay me, if at all that person does not pay me the amount, loan amount, whatever interest, so I am in a safe position, I can dispose of his goods and I can realize my amount. If at all this pledgor Pawnee says that I don't want your property, I won't demand for it also. He is waiving off his right. So what happens to his right? Automatically it comes to an end. If at all is not claiming his right, it comes to an end. Now we'll go to a case law. So that it is Syndicate Bank versus Official Liquidator Mrs. Prashant Engineering Company Private Limited. What happens in this company is the bank gives a loan to the company. It gives a loan to the company and the company says that it says that as well as it hypothecates all its machines which are installed in its company, and in the factory it gives it in the favor of the bank. But the bank here is not interested in any of this property. Initially, the bank brings a suit against this company and asks that they have to give certain amount. So initially they do pay it off for some amount. They say that yes, the decree, I'll pass a decree, the court passes a decree saying that worth 2 lakh, it is 2,11,087, it is somewhere nearing amount to 2 lakh. So the court passes a decree for that and they get the decree. But the bank has never asked for the pledgor to give any movables, any machines as a security for their loan. Neither they requested the court, neither they themselves took the possession. So it was held by the court that, see, the bank has waived off their right. So their position as a pawnee or pledgor has come to an end, and subsequent now whatever they've got, the decree is final, and for the subsequent amount and all, they cannot further claim saying that they have taken a loan and they have to give their machines and all as a security. No, they cannot claim all those things because they have waived off their right. They neither took the possession initially, neither did they go through the court, saying that through court they didn't ask the possession. So they have waived off their right very clearly. From this, it is clear that by waiving off their right, their claim comes to an end, their right comes to an end. They cannot further take the possession of the goods, or they cannot claim their money by just saying that this goods belongs to us, it is in our possession, so you clear it off and then take. No, they cannot do this. Initially only they have to take the possession as soon as they give the loan, or through court they can claim the possession, which they have not done. They have failed in it. The next one is pledge by hypothecation. The goods can be allowed to remain in the custody of the pledgee for some purpose. You can keep those goods. Pledge and hypothecation is almost similar. So, pledge by hypothecation. You are pledging by hypothecating your property. We have a beautiful case law for this. That is Reeves versus Cooper. Now, what happens in this case is, there is a captain of the ship who has pledged his chronometer to the ship owner, but the ship owner allows him to use the instrument for the purpose of voyage. Now this is a constructive delivery, right? Just try recalling the things and keep analyzing it. So here the story is different. But here let us go back to the facts again. The captain of the ship pledged his chronometer to the ship owner, but he allowed him to use it for his voyage. This captain again pledges it over to another person. The court held that the first pledge is to be valued. Whatever the first he has given, hypothecated the particular instrument to the captain of the ship, to the owner of the ship, that is a valid pledge. So, the right of the hypothecary is also discussed in Tarun Bhargav versus State of Haryana. It says that the hypothecary has got the position of the creditor. He can claim the goods first. He can also dispose of the goods in case if he does not get his loan amount back. It is usually in loan amounts, so he can also get back his amount. Now we'll come to the topic, who can pledge. So section 178 and 179 gives us the list of persons who can pledge. They may not be the owners, but still they have the authority to pledge. So now let's know who are those people who have got the authority by the owner that they can pledge the goods. The first one is pledge by mercantile agent. It is given under section 178. It lays down 4 important conditions when you analyze the definition. And what are those conditions? Let's know one by one. The first condition, it says that the pledge should be made by a mercantile agent. That is, he should be a mercantile agent and he should be authorized by his principal that yes, you are my agent and you can do the transaction. Then this mercantile agent should have obtained the possession of the goods or title of the documents. And yes, obviously when he has obtained that, he will be having a consent of the owner, right? Yes. Let's go to the third one. He must pledge the goods while acting in the ordinary course of business as a mercantile agent. That is, it should be limited to his business transactions only. He is acting as a mercantile agent only during he being the authorized by the principal, right? So during the regular course of business, he can act as an agent and do certain transfers which are required. Then the fourth point is the pledgee should have acted in good faith and he should without the notice that such mercantile agent did not have an authority to pledge. What it says is the last point. The pledgee is a person who is taking the possession of goods, right? He should be in the good faith that yes, whatever it is happening, I am doing it in a good faith. The pledger is also giving it to me in a good faith. Pledger is the mercantile agent here whom I am talking about. He is giving in a good faith. Yes, even I am taking in a good faith. I don't know anything, whatever the previous thing has happened. I don't know whether he is authorized or not. I know that this person is the pledger and I am taking the goods for some money, for the loan he has taken. That's all. You should be clear. That is what your fourth point says. So the first point says that he should be a mercantile agent, he should be authorized, that is he should have the possession or the title of the documents with the consent of the owner. The third point was he should be acting in his regular course of business as a mercantile agent, and the fourth point is the pledgee should act in a good faith and he should have no notice that without the notice that the mercantile agent did not have authority over that. He should, if he is not aware that he does not have an authority and he takes it in good faith, then he is not liable for anything and it becomes a valid pledge. Got it? Clear? So okay, we'll move on to the next point, that is pledged by a person in possession under a voidable contract. Now this point is very interesting. This particular thing is given in section 178A, capital A. It says that when the pawner or the pledger has obtained the goods pledged to him under the voidable contract, that is under section 19 and 19A, and the contract has not been rescinded at the time of the pledge, then the pawnee has acquired the good title over the goods. Very simple, right? So what it says is, this goods, simple terms. These goods are supposed to, there was some contract entered initially between two persons, A and B. And that contract has to be cancelled or rescinded for some purpose. It was supposed to be cancelled. Maybe it was entered in fraudulent terms or something else has happened where the performance was impossible. I'm just giving you an example. So at that time, the contract should have got cancelled, but it has not been cancelled, and this person B, he goes and pledges it to the other person C. He becomes a pledger and C becomes a pledgee. Now this person C has taken it in a good faith. He does not know that this contract is supposed to get cancelled. He doesn't know all those things, but he has taken it in a good faith. So at that time the court held that yes, since the C has taken in a good faith, that pledge is valid. For that, we have a case law called Philip versus Bruce Limited. In this case, there is a person called North. His name is North. He goes to the jeweler, plaintiff. The plaintiff is a jeweler. He goes to his firm and he purchases certain jewelry. He purchases a ring. When he is purchasing a ring, he falsely represents himself as Sir George Bullhouse. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is wrong. It's the spelling is Bulloughh. Sir George Bulloughh. Bullhouse. And that man is quite famous and is a man of credit. He was quite famous. He must be a businessman or something. Is very famous around. And thereby he persuades that person North. He persuades that you give me a ring now and you take a check. He give a check and hands over the possession of the ring to the person North. This happens all immediately, and subsequently the check is dishonored. Before the plaintiff could avoid the contract, saying that avoid this contract on the ground that it was a fraud done by a person called North, this North has pledged the ring to someone else. That someone else is the defendant. He gives the ring to the defendant. Now, defendant has taken it to the good faith without the knowledge that that he has taken that ring under a voidable contract. Now, the case went to the court. The court said that this particular pledge is valid since the pledgee has taken it in a good faith. Fine. We'll move on to the next one. Pledge by persons with limited interest. What is this limited interest? We'll go to the example directly for this. Now, A pledges his goods to B we'll take for 5,000 rupees. This B, he's a pledgee, right? A is a pledger, B is a pledgee. This B again, he'll subpledge the goods, those goods which is received from A to other person C for rupees 8,000. Now, the question is, how much A can take back from those goods? Can he take back 8,000 or 5,000? So, by this particular provision, he can just take back 5,000. How much ever he has pledged, that limit only he can take back. Even though he has subpledged his goods only, A's goods only for 8,000, but still he can take back 5,000 and ask him to give his goods back. He cannot claim more. Clear? Fine. We'll go to the next part, that is pledge. In this case, it is always, I am discussing after sale. So after sale, by the seller and buyer who are in possession of the goods. Here, when we are discussing this, these things, whatever the after sale, it comes in Sale of Goods Act under section 30. Basically, it comes under section 30, clause 1 and 2 of Sale of Goods Act 1930. It is generally said that once the goods are sold, the ownership is transferred. Everything is over, right? The ownership is transferred, so the buyer becomes the owner of the goods. But under Sale of Goods Act, you have something else. If the person is in the possession even after selling the goods, the seller has already sold the goods, but still he has got the possession of the goods, not the ownership, possession. Remember the word possession I am saying. I am stressing on this possession. He has got the possession of the goods. Then only sale or pledge or disposition of goods by him or his agent, mercantile agent on his behalf, will convey the good title to the transferee, providing the transferee has acted in a good faith and without the knowledge any notice of previous sale. What it says is basically, if he is disposing the goods, he is giving it to another as a pledge, and that other person has taken the property as a pledge. Yes, he is giving me the security for the loan I am giving. He is taking it in a good faith, then it becomes a valid pledge. I'll make this clear by giving an example. Now A has sold the goods to B. So now the B, who is a B, is a purchaser of the goods. He has not taken the possession of the goods. Only the sale has happened, the transfer of title has taken place. He is the owner, but the possession is with the seller itself. A has sold, right? So A is the seller. Now this person A, by keeping it possession, let me give it as a security, I need some loan, he will take a loan on that particular property. Now this person, this A gives it to C on pledge for some amount, 5,000 rupees. Let's assume it is 5,000. Now C takes it in a good faith, and he does not know there is some previous sale happened and all, and he just has a possession, but he does not have a ownership title. So he takes it to the good faith. So as per the Sale of Goods Act, it is said to be taken in a good faith by a person who has taken it as a security, or else you can say pledge. So it's taken it in a good faith, right? C has taken it in a good faith. He has given the loan and he has taken the possession of the goods now, not knowing that there is a sale between A and B. So it is valid, since he has taken it in good faith. Then the next point is pledge after sale by the buyer who has the possession of the goods. Now what I mean to say is, he has the possession of the goods, the buyer has the possession of the goods, still he does not have the title of ownership. Still there is no, the titles and all are not being transferred. Now what if this buyer, he gives it as a security to other person for some loan? Again it is said that if that person has taken this, if that another person has taken it in a good faith without knowing that there is any lien or right of original seller, from the original seller, then it is valid. It says that, see, suppose the buyer might have not paid the complete money, or he may say that I'll pay in installments. So then don't you think the seller has got a lien, that if at all he does not give the installment, then the buyer can have the possession of the goods, right? But here this buyer goes and pledges the goods before he gets the title itself, since he has got a possession. Now as per Sale of Goods, if he has acted in a good faith, that is a person who has taken it as a security, doesn't know anything about it, then okay, chalo, it is valid. Now let's discuss the topic on rights of pledgee or pawnee. So under pledge, we discussed who are the persons who can pledge the goods, right? That was our previous topic. Now the new topic is rights of pledgee or pawnee. That's given under section 173 to 176 under Indian Contract Act. What are the rights now? Let's see one by one. The first right is right to retain the goods pledged. So the pledgee or pawnee has got a right to retain the goods which they have pledged for their amount to be realized. They've given a loan, right? They have to get back their loan. So till then they can retain the goods. So for this section, for this particular point, you have two sections, that is section 173 and section 174, which deals about the right to retain the goods pledged. Got it? So we will move on to the next right, second one, right to recover extraordinary expenses incurred by pawnee or pledgee. It says that in case if there is any extraordinary expense incurred by pawnee or pledgee, then he can recover it. That's given under section 175 of Indian Contract Act. The last right is last and third one is right of suit to recover the debt. It says that he has a right of suit. Right of suit means he can file a case in order to recover his debt amount, that is loan amount. And along with that, he also has a right to sale of pledged goods. He can sell the pledged goods. That's given under section 176. Here 173, 174, 175 and 176 discusses the rights of pledgee. Now let's go one by one in detail and know what are the exactly what rights does the pledgee has. The first one is right to retain the goods pledged. So this is discussed under section 173 and 174. 173 states that pawnee's right of retainer. So pawnee has got a right to retain the property or the goods. To be more clear, we discussed, right? Whenever there is a pledge taken place, a person is giving a loan to another person, right? So that person who is taking a loan is giving some security for the loan amount. So in case of his failure to pay, he can sell it and realize the amount, right? So that is what here it says that pawnee's right of retainer is the pawnee has got a right to recover the loan amount, plus if there is interest, that amount, plus if there are any additional expenses incurred, even that can be recovered by the pledger, by the pledgee. Till then, till the recovery of all these three things, he can retain the goods. So he becomes a retainer. Right of retainer. Clear? Yes. We'll move on to the next one. That is section 174. It says that not to retain other than goods pledged. Pawnee not to retain other than the goods pledged. We'll stop. There is one more thing. Presumption in case of subsequent advances. Not to retain other than the goods pledged. So what do you mean by this? The pawnee has a right to retain only those goods which have been given as a security for the loan amount which he has given to the pledger. Clear? See, if the person A has given to B a gold chain, for what? For a loan of 50,000 rupees. Both are friends. They are very best friends. So he is given 50,000 rupees for the gold chain. So now, in order to recover any money, he can just only retain that gold chain and nothing else. If suppose A is not in station, that is why he gives some cash to him. see, my entire family won't be in station for 2 weeks. Till then, we give you some cash and you also give some ornaments to be with the B, to keep it safely with B. So now, do you think that in case of default by A, B can even though retain those gold and cash given by A? He can only retain that gold chain for which he has given 50,000. All other things he cannot retain. He has only a right to retain that has a security. Got it? Clear? And nothing else. Clear? The next one is presumption in case of subsequent advances. So, what is this presumption in case of subsequent advances? Here, this section tells us that there is a presumption that in case if there is any subsequent advances for the, after the original advances, original amount, that is original loan they have taken, even that subsequent advances also become a part of loan and they can retain it. Confused? I'll clear it. Now suppose A has taken loan of 50,000 rupees from B. Clear? He has taken 50,000 and A has given something as a security. Take anything, he has given his cattle or anything. You can take anything for that case. He has given his cattle, or he has given his some movables of his factory, whatever the machineries of his factory. He has given it as a pledge to B. Now what happened after 50,000? A requires another additional 20,000. Now he again approaches B, saying that, friend, I need 20,000, you please give it to me. He does not take any security for that. Now the question is, as per this section, can those goods which he has given as a security earlier, that is machineries, can that be security for that 20,000, additional 20,000 also? As per this presumption in case of subsequent advances, yes, it can be taken, and in case if he failure to pay that additional 20,000 rupees, they can, the pledgee can retain it till the amount is realized. In case if there is a contract to the contrary, I mean to say, if they say in the contract that they mentioned it, in case of any additional loan, this security we won't be for that additional amount, this security won't be considered. Then no. So in case if there is in contract there is nothing has such mentioning that in case if there is any advance loan taken by the pledger, then that won't be considered for realizing the amount that is the security taken, whatever the security they have taken for that, it won't be included. In the sense that security whatever he has given, it is only for 50,000 and additional 20,000 won't be applicable for that. Got it? Clear? Okay, let's go to the next point. Right to recover extraordinary expenses incurred by pawnee. That's stated under section 175. It says that if there is any extraordinary expenses, we already studied here pawnee's right of retainer. Under pawnee's right of retainer, what did we study? In what is the amount that the pledger has to pay the pledgee? It is number one, the principal amount, the loan amount, and plus interest, and in case of any additional expenses. Now in case, what is this extraordinary expenses? This extraordinary expenses means if he is going to make such arrangements in order to safeguard it. Suppose A has given some jewelry as a security to B. It is worth 5 lakhs. Now B has to safeguard it, right? So in order to safeguard, he is taking some locker. So that locker charges also has to be borne by the pledgee as per this particular section. Otherwise, if he is making something, he's insuring it. so that the goods, in case of theft or anything happens to the goods, the money can, they don't go to a loss. So they are insuring that particular goods. At that time also, the expenses which are incurred to make the insurance is to be borne by whom? Pledger. That is the right of the pawnee. So right to recover extraordinary expenses incurred by pawnee. In case pawnee is incurring any additional expenses, like if he is having taking a locker, or if he is making some insurance, then he can recover it from pledger. Clear? That's given under section 175. The next one is right of suit to recover the debt or sale of pledged goods, section 176. It says that, it is very clear, from the face of it only you can make it, right of suit to recover the debt. In case if the pledger does not repay the amount even after the specified time, then what happens? Yes, this pledgee can file a suit and recover the debt amount plus any interest plus any additional expenses which we have discussed here. Clear with this point? Right to file a case. Remember, this has a simple thing. The next one is right of sale of pledged goods. It's given under section 176. It says that in case of default by the pledger to pay the amount, even after subsequent request telling him that you have to pay the amount, he fails to pay. By giving a notice, then what is the last resort left to the pledgee is sale of that goods and recovery from that. Before the sale, he has to give the notice to the pledger saying that, see, because of your failure of payment of amount that is due from you, and after subsequent request, your failure to pay, I am selling this goods whichever you are pledged and realizing my amount, loan amount. Clear? Yes. That's all. These are the rights of pledgee or pawnee. Right? This is the right of pledgee against whom? Pledger. Got it? Clear? Pledger is a person taking loan. Pledgee is a person who is giving the loan. Clear? In simple sense, you can say that pledger is a person who is pledging his some goods or property for money. Pledgee is a person who is taking the possession of the property and giving the money. Remember, in that sense, creditor and debtor. Right? Now let's discuss what are the rights of pawner or pledger. He has got one right. Well, it is under section 177. But most important, it is right to redeem. It says that section 177 says that defaulting pawner's right to redeem. Defaulting pawner's right to redeem. That's given under section 177 of Indian Contract Act. What it says that after the time of debt or performance, promise of performance has been elapsed, has expired, to be clear, the pawner can redeem the goods pledged. The pawner can redeem the goods pledged. I'm sorry, I've repeated twice here. So the pawner can redeem the goods pledged before the actual sale, but he must pay expenses for his default. I've actually tried to break the definition. It's given in a big para, and I've tried to make it simple. It says that soon after the expiry of the time of the debt or amount to be paid, or in case if there is any promise made, performance of a promise need to be made after the expiry has taken place, or of that particular time has taken place, the pawner can redeem the goods before the actual sale. That is, before that particular goods have been sold, he can redeem it and he can sell it, and whatever the expenses it is arising from that, it has to be borne by the whom? Yes, it has to be borne by the pawner because of his default. He had to pay the amount, he had to pay the interest, but he's not doing and he's redeeming his goods back. So that's why he has to bear all the expenses for his default. And in case when he is redeeming also, if there is any expenses which is been incurred, even that also has to be paid by whom? Pawner. But this is quite important, right? That is right to redeem. In case at the time of redemption, if there is any accretion of goods, we studied this word, no? Where? Under bailment. So we studied under bailment that in case if there is any addition of goods, suppose A has given to B some goods. Let's take an example of shares. Now the shares he has given it as a security to B. He has taken some loan. For that shares, there is bonus shares, interest, dividend, everything is received, right? Even that plus whatever additional charges has been incurred for that, or obtained for that, not incurred, obtained for that, that also has to be given into the A during this redemption. Remember I gave an example of a calf and a cow. A gives a calf on a to be a cow. Sorry, A gives to be a cow, and he says that keep it with you for some time. Now, when it was under the custody of B, a cow has given birth to a calf. Even that also has to be given it to A because it is A's right, right? Same thing. I gave you the examples of bonus shares also, right shares also. Same thing here. In case if that particular security is a share, for example, we'll take it as a share. There is some additional things, that is if the share has got a dividend or a debenture has got interest. Along with that, even that has to be given it to the pledger or the pawner by the pledgee. That's all it says. There was one case, M.R. Dhawan versus Madan Mohan, which said that whatever the goods have been given to the pledgee as a security, if there is any additional things on that, increase in that particular goods, that also has to be written back. Clear? He has got a right to redeem. That's all is the right of the pawner. This is the most important right to redeem. Now, let's know the difference between the pledge and the bailment. They're very important. So now let's know the basic differences. From whatever we have learned till now about pledge and bailment, this also forms a revision. So you know the difference also now. Now come, let's try to know what are the differences. The first difference you can cite is the bailment is discussed under section 148 to 171 of Indian Contract Act, whereas the pledge is discussed under section 172 to 181 of Indian Contract Act. Please do mention it properly. Discussed under section 148 to 171 of Indian Contract Act, and this from 172 to 181 of Indian Contract Act. After knowing the section, let us try to know what is the meaning. The second point, it should be a meaning, basic meaning, general meaning. So it is giving possession of goods for some purpose. Basically, it is giving possession of goods. And pledges, thing given over has a security. Pledge means basic meaning. It is a thing given over has some security. You are giving some security. That is what we discussed when we were discussing the basic meanings of pledge and bailment respectively. Then the third point is give the actual meaning which is given under your definition clause. The first one is section 148, that is, it means that a bailment is the delivery of goods from one person to another for some purpose upon a contract, And when the purpose is accomplished or fulfilled, it has to be written to the person who is giving it, or it has to be disposed of as per his directions. This was a definition under section 48, right? Yes, that has to be mentioned here. For pledge, the definition was under section 172, the bailment of goods as security for payment or performance of a promise. So please do write the complete definition, which will fetch you more marks. Next, after knowing the section, basic meaning and the definition given under the Indian Contract Act, now it's time to know who are the parties. There are two parties to the contract of bailment, which is mentioned under section 148, and they are bailer and bailee. Bailer is a person who delivers the possession of the goods. Bailee is a person who receives the who gets the transfer of goods to him. Who gets the goods basically. Next, under pledge, there are again two parties. Who are they? Pawner and pawnee. Sorry, it's not or, it is and. Pawner and pawnee. Pawner is otherwise called as pledger and pawnee is otherwise called as pledgee. Got? Same thing as bailer and bailee. It is almost have the same resemblance. The next point is, fifth point is, give an example for it. I give an example of Ram delivers a cloth to Shyam for stitching. Since Shyam is a tailor, he gives it for stitching. It is not only this example, you can give other examples also for gold ornaments, which I gave you that the other day, that for gold ornaments also, you're giving it to a jeweler, then it becomes a bailment again. You're giving it to a mill for getting the millets into a floor, converted into flour. That is also a bailment. So you can give any number of examples here. The next one is farmer delivers 50 bags of wheat to a bank for a loan. Now the farmer wants a loan, so he gives 50 bags of wheat in order to procure a loan. Got it? Pledge and your bailment. The next one is, this particular bailment is made for any purpose. There need not be any specific purpose as such. It can be for any purpose. It can be for repair. It can be for, stitching purpose or any other purpose. But for pledge, it is specific purpose. There is a specific purpose. That is, it is for loan. Yes, it is for loan. Clear? So even you can mention that bailment, pledge is a specific, it is one of the kind of bailment. And under pledge, bailment, you can mention that, this pledge is actually, the bailment is a wider term and pledge comes under it. Pledge is a part of it. And under pledge, you can say it as, pledge is a specific, it is one kind of bailment. Clear? That is why there is a resemblance, that is why I gave you the difference. So remember to write that under bailment, one more additional point which I have not mentioned, and I am sorry for that. You can write it as bailment is a wider term and the pledge is also a part of it. Got it? And under pledge you can mention it as, it is one kind of bailment. One more additional point, you have got it. The next one is, bailee can use the goods. Here, when there is a bailment of goods, the bailee can use the goods. He has a right to use the goods. Got it? Or upon a contract, that if there is a contract, then he can use the goods. Not an issue at all. But whereas, he has to get the permission of the bailer. Remember it. He cannot use it unauthorized in an unauthorized manner. Got it? Then, pledgee cannot use the goods. Here, once it is given as a security, for example, here only, the bank cannot use the goods. Whatever the 50 bags of wheat, the bank cannot use it for itself. It's a security given by the farmer, right? So it has to be stored safely. It has to be stored safely. He cannot use it. The bank cannot see, chalo, you have got wheat, we'll make some food out of it. No, they can't do that. Clear? Next. No right to sell the goods by Bailey. Bailey can't generally sell the goods. We never came across it. He cannot sell the goods. Once if there is any such default and all, very rarely, but he cannot sell the goods. Whereas the pledgee can sell if the pledger does not pay the loan amount. In case if the pledgee does not pay, even after request, he can sell it. And if he does not redeem also before the period, then also he can sell. And the last and important point is, Bailey has a right to lien only for his labor and skill. So we have come across this, that whenever there is some skill or labor is used by the Bailey for the goods given by the bailor, then he can have a right of lien. Lien, what is lien? To keep it, to retain it with himself until the payment is made. So he has a right to lien only for the labor and skill whatever he has used. The last one here is lien for non-payment of interest. Under this, the pledgee can have the lien of the property for what? For non-payment of interest. In case if the pledger has not paid any interest amount, then he can have interest or a principal, whatever it is. Any amount is not paid basically, then he can exercise the right of lien and keep it with himself. Sorry. Clear? So these are the basic differences between bailment and pledge. So from this, I think you are clear with what is bailment and what is pledge. So from this, we have almost covered all the parts which are mentioned under the unit 2. We got to know what is contract of bailment. We got to know the definition of bailment. Under section 148, we also came to know the rights and duties of bailor and bailey. Right? Rights and duties of bailor and bailey also. Then we also studied about this finder of the goods. When he is acting as a bailey, what are his duties and rights? Then we saw about lien also. Right to lien. When does the right to lien come into picture? Under bailment. Then we studied about right to pledge, contract of pledge, contract of pledge. Under that we studied the definition of pledge, rights and duties of pawner and pawnee. Then ultimately we studied the difference between pledge and bailment, which all comes under the unit 2 of Indian Contract Act, the second part. So these are quite important questions. You may get the question of difference between pledge and bailment, and right to lien also. Lien is also a very important topic, and bailment, rights and duties, bailor and bailey, the basic definition of bailment, and pledge. You have to know the difference between bailment and pledge, rights and duties of pawner and pawnee. In the next class, we'll be starting a new topic, agency. It's quite interesting topic which you have come across in many other subjects also. You might have studied about vicarious liability. Yes, those are the things again coming under this contract of agency. So let's see what it is in the next class. Thank you for your patience.